Rebecca stared at the email on her screen for the third time that morning. Someone had sent her information about Daniel Warren, the man everyone in the city seemed to worship. His charity foundation had been helping poor families for years, and the media loved him. But this anonymous tip claimed it was all fake. Just a way to look good while hiding money and avoiding taxes. She'd been a journalist for 8 years now, and she'd seen this story before. Rich people pretending to care about others while actually caring only about themselves. The fancy galas, the photo opportunities with sick children, the speeches about giving back. It usually made her sick to her stomach. Her editor, Tom, walked over to her desk with his usual coffee-stained tie and tired expression. "So, what do you think? Worth investigating?" Rebecca nodded slowly. "If it's true, it's a big story. Everyone thinks this guy is some kind of saint. And if it's not true?" Tom raised an eyebrow. "Then we don't publish. But someone went through a lot of trouble to send us this information. There's usually fire where there's smoke." Tom agreed and told her to take whatever time she needed. This could be the kind of story that got attention, the kind that mattered. Rebecca had built her career on exposing the truth, even when powerful people tried to hide it. But she knew she couldn't just walk up to Daniel and ask him if he was committing fraud. She needed to see how he really operated when he thought nobody was watching. She needed to get close to him without him knowing who she really was. That night, Rebecca sat in her small apartment and created a new identity. She became Lisa Martinez, a single mother struggling to make ends meet. She created social media accounts, a backstory, even borrowed her friend's young daughter for some photos. It wasn't technically illegal, she told herself. It was investigative journalism. Sometimes you had to bend the rules to expose the truth. The next morning, she called the foundation's helpline. A cheerful woman answered and listened to her made-up story about being behind on rent and needing help with her daughter's school supplies. The woman was kind, patient, asked questions about her situation. She scheduled Rebecca for an appointment the following week. Rebecca spent the next few days preparing. She bought clothes from thrift stores, practiced her story until it felt natural, and researched everything she could find about Daniel Warren. He was 42, had made his money in technology, and started his foundation 10 years ago after his mother passed away. At least that's what the official story said. She looked at his photos online. He had dark hair that was starting to gray. At the temples, warm brown eyes and a smile that reached all the way up to those eyes. He looked genuine in every picture, but Rebecca reminded herself that sociopaths often looked charming. That was how they fooled people. The day of the community event finally arrived. The foundation was hosting a back-to-school supply drive at a local community center. Rebecca dressed in her thrift store clothes and drove her old car to the event. Her hands were shaking slightly as she parked. She'd gone undercover before, but never for something this big. Inside the community center, dozens of families were lined up to receive backpacks and school supplies. Volunteers were everywhere, helping people fill out forms and handing out supplies. Rebecca joined the line, her small recording device hidden in her purse. She needed to capture everything. As she waited, she watched the volunteers. They all seemed genuinely happy to be there. One older woman was hugging kids and laughing with parents. A young man was carrying heavy boxes without complaint. Everyone seemed to believe in what they were doing. Then she saw him. Daniel Warren was in the corner, not standing on a stage or posing for photos. He was on his hands and knees helping a little boy tie his shoes. The boy's mother was trying to manage 3 other children, and Daniel had simply stepped in to help. There was no camera pointed at him, no reporter taking notes. Just a quiet moment of help. Rebecca felt a small flutter of doubt but pushed it away. People could fake kindness for a few minutes. She needed to see more. When it was finally her turn, she met with one of the foundation's caseworkers. The woman was thorough but not judgmental, asking questions about her situation and what kind of help she needed. Rebecca gave her rehearsed answers, feeling guilty for lying to someone who was just trying to help people. After the interview, the caseworker told her they would process her application and get back to her within a week. As Rebecca was leaving, she nearly bumped into someone carrying a large box of books. "Oh, I'm so sorry." The person put down the box quickly. It was Daniel. Up close, he was taller than she expected, and those warm eyes were fixed on her with genuine concern. "Are you okay? I wasn't watching where I was going," he said with an apologetic smile. "I'm fine, really. My fault," Rebecca managed to say. "I hope we were able to help you today," he said, glancing at the paperwork in her hands. "I know the process can feel overwhelming, but everyone here really cares. We'll do everything we can." Rebecca nodded, not trusting herself to say much more. She needed to get out of there before her guilt showed on her face. "I'm Daniel, by the way. I volunteer here most weekends." He said it so casually, as if he wasn't the millionaire founder of the whole organization. "Lisa," she said quietly. "Nice to meet you, Lisa. I hope things get easier for you soon." His smile was kind, and for a moment Rebecca wondered if maybe she was wrong about him. But she'd been fooled before. She'd believed in people who turned out to be terrible. She couldn't let one nice interaction change her investigation. Over the next 2 weeks, Rebecca kept going back to the foundation. She volunteered at events, claiming she wanted to give back even though she was struggling. It gave her access to see how things really worked behind the scenes. She took notes on everything, recorded conversations when she could, and looked for any sign of fraud. But the more she saw, the more confused she became. The foundation's offices were modest, not fancy. Daniel drove a normal car, not a luxury vehicle. He knew many of the families by name and remembered details about their lives. He stayed late after events to help clean up, even when all the cameras were gone. One evening, after a food distribution event, Rebecca was helping fold up tables when Daniel approached her. "You've been coming around a lot," he said. "I appreciate it. We always need dedicated volunteers." "I like helping," Rebecca said, which was partly true. She did like seeing the difference the foundation made, even if she was there for the wrong reasons. "How's your daughter doing? Did she get everything she needed for school?" Rebecca was surprised he remembered. "Yes, thank you. She's doing great." They talked for a few more minutes about nothing important. The weather, the upcoming events, how tired they both were. It was easy, comfortable conversation, the kind you have with someone you're starting to become friends with. As Rebecca drove home that night, she felt more conflicted than ever. Either Daniel was the greatest actor she'd ever met, or the anonymous tip was wrong. She needed to dig deeper, find the real truth before her emotions got in the way of her job. She didn't realize it yet, but she was already in trouble. Not the professional kind. The kind that happens when you start to care about someone you're supposed to be investigating. The kind that makes everything complicated, and complicated was exactly what her life was about to become. 3 weeks had passed since Rebecca started her investigation, and she still hadn't found anything suspicious. Every bank statement she'd managed to glimpse looked legitimate. Every expense seemed justified. Every person she'd interviewed had nothing but good things to say about Daniel and his foundation. It was starting to drive her crazy. She sat in her car outside the foundation office on a Tuesday evening, watching the lights. Most of the staff had left hours ago, but Daniel's car was still in the parking lot. She'd noticed this pattern. He was always the last one to leave, sometimes staying until 9 or 10 at night. Her phone rang. It was her best friend Amy, probably calling to check on her again. "Hey," Rebecca answered. "Please tell me you're not sitting in your car stalking that charity guy again," Amy said with a sigh. "I'm not stalking. I'm investigating." "Rebecca, you've been doing this for weeks. Maybe there's nothing to find because there's nothing there. Or maybe I just haven't looked hard enough," Rebecca shot back, though her voice lacked conviction. "Or maybe," Amy said gently, "you don't want to find anything because you like him." Rebecca's stomach twisted. "That's ridiculous. I barely know him. You talk about him constantly. Daniel said this, Daniel did that. You've been volunteering at his charity more than you've been working on actual paid assignments." "That's part of the investigation." "Sure it is," Amy said, clearly not believing her. "Just be careful, okay? I don't want to see you get hurt." After they hung up, Rebecca sat there in the darkness trying to be honest with herself. Was Amy right? Had she developed feelings for Daniel? The thought was absurd. She was a professional. She'd been undercover before. She knew how to keep her emotions separate from her work. But then why did her heart beat faster every time she saw him? Why did she find herself looking forward to volunteering just because he might be there? A sharp tap on her window made her jump. She looked up to see Daniel standing there, concern on his face. She quickly rolled down the window. "Lisa, are you all right?" he asked. "Your car has been sitting here for over an hour." My car won't start," she lied quickly. "I was about to call for help." "Let me take a look," he said, already moving toward the front of her car. "No, really." "You don't have to," but he was already opening her hood, examining the engine with a flashlight from his phone. Rebecca got out of the car, her mind racing. Of course her car would start fine. She'd just been sitting there thinking. After a few minutes, Daniel straightened up. "Try starting it now." Rebecca got back in and turned the key. The engine started immediately. She wanted to disappear. "Must have just been a loose connection," Daniel said, wiping his hands on his pants. "But it's getting late and I don't want you to break down on the way home. Let me follow you just to make sure you get there safely." "That's really not necessary," Rebecca protested. "I insist. It's dark, and if something happens..." He smiled, that warm smile that made her feel like she was the only person who mattered in that moment. "I wouldn't forgive myself." Rebecca couldn't think of a way to refuse without seeming strange, so she agreed. As she drove home with Daniel following behind her, she felt like the worst person in the world. Here was this genuinely kind man, worried about her safety, and she was lying to him about everything. When they reached her apartment building, Daniel parked and walked her to the entrance. "Thank you," Rebecca said quietly. "You didn't have to do all this." "I wanted to," he replied. Then he hesitated as if debating whether to say something. "Listen, I know this might be forward, but would you want to grab coffee sometime? Not as a volunteer and founder, just as two people who could maybe be friends." Rebecca's heart sank and soared at the same time. This was exactly what she didn't need. Getting closer to him would make everything more complicated. But it was also an opportunity to learn more, to see him in a different setting. "I'd like that," she heard herself say. They exchanged phone numbers, and Daniel left with a wave. Rebecca trudged up to her apartment, feeling more confused than ever. Their coffee date happened 3 days later at a small cafe downtown. Rebecca had told herself it was just part of the investigation, but she'd also spent an hour choosing what to wear. Daniel was already there when she arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. "I hope I got your order right," he said, sliding 1 cup toward her. "You always get the caramel latte at foundation events." He'd noticed. He'd actually paid attention to what she drank. They talked for 2 hours. Not about the foundation or charity work, but about life. Daniel told her about growing up poor, about his mother working 3 jobs to keep them afloat, about how she'd died when he was 30, unable to afford the medical care she needed. "That's when I knew I had to do something," he said, his eyes distant with memory. "I'd made my money in tech, but what was it for if I couldn't help people like my mom? People who work hard but can't catch a break?" Rebecca found herself sharing real stories from her own life. About her father leaving when she was young. About her mother struggling to raise her alone. She had to catch herself several times, almost revealing details that didn't fit with her made-up identity. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said suddenly. "And you can tell me if I'm overstepping." Rebecca nodded, nervous about what he might ask. "You seem sad sometimes. Like you're carrying something heavy. I just wanted you to know that if you ever need to talk, I'm here." Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes. How could he be this perceptive, this kind? "Thank you," she managed to say. "That means a lot." As they left the cafe, Daniel walked her to her car. The autumn evening was cool and Rebecca shivered slightly. Without thinking, Daniel shrugged off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "I'll get it back to you next time," she said. "Next time," he repeated with a smile. I like the sound of that. That night, Rebecca sat in her apartment wearing Daniel's jacket and feeling like the worst person alive. She pulled out her laptop and opened the folder with all her investigation notes. Pages and pages of observations and not one piece of evidence that Daniel was anything other than exactly who he seemed to be. She found herself typing a new document. Not investigation notes, but the truth. The real story of a man who'd turned his pain into purpose, who worked harder than anyone she'd ever met, who remembered small details about people because he genuinely cared, But she also wrote about herself, about the lie she was living, the deception she'd created, about how she'd come looking for a scandal and found something she hadn't expected. A good man. Her phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Thanks for coffee today. I had a really great time. Sweet dreams, Lisa." Lisa, not even her real name. Rebecca put her phone down and buried her face in her hands. The next week, she threw herself deeper into the investigation, determined to find something that would justify what she was doing. She started showing up to the foundation office early in the morning, before most of the staff arrived. She stayed late memorizing the layout, looking through files when she had the chance. One morning, she arrived to find Daniel already there, asleep at his desk. Papers were spread everywhere and his computer was still on. She approached quietly and saw what he was working on. Grant applications, dozens of them, all carefully filled out to help families cover medical bills, rent, and other emergencies. She noticed something else too. Many of the applications had notes in the margins. Call hospital, negotiate bill down. Contact landlord, arrange payment plan. Check with local churches for additional support. Daniel wasn't just handing out money. He was personally fighting for each family, using every resource he could find. "I must have dozed off," a tired voice said. Rebecca jumped. Daniel was awake, rubbing his eyes and looking embarrassed. "What time did you get here?" she asked. "I never left," he admitted. "We have a deadline for these applications and the Martinez family needs help urgently. Their daughter needs surgery and insurance won't cover all of it." "You stayed here all night for one family?" "For 12 families, actually," he said, gesturing at the papers. "But yes, these aren't just applications to me. They're people. Real people who are scared and struggling. If I can help, I have to try." Rebecca felt something crack inside her chest. This wasn't an act. Nobody performed for an audience of 0 at 4 in the morning. Over the following days, she witnessed more moments like this. Daniel taking a call from a crying mother at midnight and talking her through her panic. Daniel using his own money to cover a gap in funding because the foundation's budget was stretched thin. Daniel remembering a child's birthday and showing up with a cake. One rainy evening, Rebecca's actual car, not the fake breakdown, really did stop working. She was stuck in the foundation parking lot, and without thinking, she called Daniel instead of a tow truck. He arrived 20 minutes later, despite the pouring rain. They both got soaked trying to figure out what was wrong with the car, but eventually determined it needed professional help. "Come on. I'll drive you home," Daniel said, leading her to his car. In the car, with rain drumming on the roof and the heater running, something shifted between them. They were both drenched, laughing about how ridiculous they must look, and suddenly the laughter faded into something else. "I really like you, Lisa," Daniel said softly. "I know that might be inappropriate given our connection through the foundation, but I can't help it. You're smart and kind, and you care about people. I look forward to seeing you more than I probably should." Rebecca's heart was racing. She knew she should say something, should stop this before it went any further. But instead she found herself saying, "I like you too." And she meant it. Not Lisa, the fake identity. Rebecca, the real person underneath the lies, liked this man more than she'd liked anyone in years. That was the moment she knew she was in real trouble. Because how could she ever tell him the truth now? How could she explain that everything he thought he knew about her was a lie? That she'd come into his life to destroy him, not to care about him? As he drove her home through the rain, their hands somehow found each other across the center console. And Rebecca realized with a sinking feeling that she'd done exactly what she'd sworn she'd never do. She'd fallen for the person she was investigating, and when the truth came out, and it was going to break both their hearts. Rebecca hadn't slept properly in 3 days. She'd been avoiding Daniel's calls, making excuses about being busy. The guilt was eating her alive, but she couldn't stop now. She'd come too far, invested too much time. She needed to finish this investigation one way or another. But the truth was, she wasn't investigating anymore. She was desperately searching for proof that Daniel was exactly who he appeared to be. She needed evidence that would let her walk away from this mess with a clear conscience. Late one night, she sat in her apartment with her laptop, staring at the foundation's website. She'd been over the public financial statements a dozen times. Everything looked legitimate. But there had to be more detailed records somewhere. Internal documents that would show the complete picture. She knew what she was about to do was wrong. Possibly illegal. but she told herself it was the only way to be sure. Using some techniques she'd learned from a hacker friend years ago, techniques she'd promised herself she'd never use, Rebecca managed to access the Foundation's internal server. Her hands shook as she navigated through the files. She found the financial records, detailed spreadsheets showing every dollar that came in and every dollar that went out. She opened file after file, scanning through years of transactions. What she found made her gasp. Daniel's salary was listed as $40,000 a year. That was barely above poverty level for someone in his position. Most nonprofit directors paid themselves six figures or more. She dug deeper. There were records of personal donations Daniel had made to the foundation. Huge amounts, hundreds of thousands of dollars from his own pocket, never publicized, never claimed on any press release. Then she found something that made her eyes fill with tears. A file labeled personal expenses. She opened it, expecting to find something damning. Instead, she found receipts for things like a hospital bill for a family whose child needed surgery, a 3-month rent payment for a woman escaping an abusive relationship, college tuition for a young man who'd aged out of foster care, all paid personally by Daniel. None of it run through the foundation. He was helping people quietly, privately with his own money, not even taking the tax deductions he could have claimed. Rebecca kept reading, and the picture became clearer. Daniel lived in a modest apartment, drove a 10-year-old car, and spent almost nothing on himself. Every penny he made went into helping others. Then she found the file that changed everything. It was labeled Anonymous Reports. Inside were emails and documents that Daniel had saved. They were the same allegations that had been sent to her, along with several similar accusations sent to other journalists and news outlets over the past year. Daniel had tracked down the source. A businessman named Richard Cole, who'd tried to buy up several properties in low-income neighborhoods to develop luxury condos. Daniel's foundation had organized the community to fight back, helping families secure legal representation and funding to stop the development. Cole had lost millions on the deal. The anonymous accusations were his revenge, an attempt to destroy Daniel's reputation and discredit the foundation. Rebecca sat back in her chair, her heart pounding. Daniel had known about these allegations the whole time. He'd known people were investigating him, but he'd never said a word. He'd just kept working, kept helping people, kept being the person he was. And she'd been one of those investigators. She'd lied to him, deceived him, gotten close to him under false pretenses. She'd been so cynical, so sure that nobody could really be that good, that she'd created an entire fake identity to prove he was a fraud. Her phone buzzed. Another text from Daniel. "Hey, I know you're busy, but I miss talking to you. Hope everything's okay." Rebecca started crying, real ugly sobs that shook her whole body. What had she done? This wonderful, genuine man had opened his heart to her, and she'd been lying to him every single day. She had to tell him. She had to come clean, even though it would destroy whatever chance they had, even though he would hate her. It was the right thing to do, and she'd already done too many wrong things. The foundation was hosting a big gala event that weekend. It was their annual fundraiser, and Daniel had invited her weeks ago. She'd said yes, back when she still thought of it as part of her investigation. Now it seemed like the worst possible timing, but maybe it was also the right time. After the gala, when things quieted down, she would tell him everything. She would show him her real press credentials, explain why she'd done it, and beg for his forgiveness even though she didn't deserve it. The night of the gala arrived too quickly. Rebecca put on the only nice dress she owned and drove to the fancy hotel where the event was being held. Her stomach was in knots. The ballroom was beautiful. Hundreds of people in elegant clothes, soft music playing, tables decorated with flowers. She felt completely out of place. Then she saw Daniel. He was wearing a suit, and he looked more handsome than she'd ever seen him. When he spotted her, his face lit up with genuine joy. He walked over immediately. "You came," he said, smiling. "You look beautiful." "Thank you," Rebecca managed to say. "You look pretty good yourself." He laughed and took her hand. "Come on, let me introduce you to some people." For the next hour, Daniel introduced her to donors, volunteers, and families the foundation had helped. Each person had a story. A child who'd gotten life-saving treatment, a mother who'd kept her home, a young man who was now in college thanks to the foundation's support. Rebecca watched Daniel with each person. He remembered names, asked follow-up questions about things they'd mentioned months ago, genuinely celebrated their victories with them. This wasn't networking or schmoozing. This was real connection. During dinner, Daniel gave a speech. He talked about the foundation's accomplishments that year, but he spent more time thanking the volunteers and celebrating the resilience of the families they'd served. He didn't talk about himself at all. After dinner, people mingled and danced. Daniel asked Rebecca to dance, and she couldn't refuse. As they swayed to the music, she felt like she was in a dream. A beautiful, terrible dream that was about to become a nightmare. "Can I tell you something?" Daniel said softly as they danced. Rebecca's heart clenched. "Of course. These past few weeks, getting to know you have been some of the best of my life. I know we met through difficult circumstances, with you needing help from the foundation, but I've come to care about you a lot, and I was wondering—" He paused, looking nervous in a way she'd never seen him before. "Would you maybe want to go out on a real date? Not coffee as friends, but an actual date?" Rebecca felt like she was drowning. She couldn't do this. She couldn't keep lying to him. Not for one more second, not when he was being this vulnerable with her. "Daniel, I need to talk to you, somewhere private." He must have heard something in her voice because concern crossed his face. "Okay, let's go outside." They found a quiet balcony overlooking the city. The night air was cool, and Rebecca wrapped her arms around herself, trying to find the courage to speak. "Whatever it is, you can tell me," Daniel said gently. Rebecca took a deep breath. "There was no easy way to do this. My name isn't Lisa, it's Rebecca. Rebecca Thompson. I'm a journalist." She watched the confusion cross his face, then the beginning of understanding. "I came to your foundation under false pretenses. Someone sent me an anonymous tip claiming you were committing fraud, using the foundation as a front. I created a fake identity to investigate you." The color drained from Daniel's face. He took a step back. "Everything I told you about my daughter, about struggling financially, that was all lies. I don't have a daughter. I'm not poor. I was pretending to be someone else to get close to you, to find dirt on you. Why are you telling me this?" His voice was hollow, nothing like the warm tone she'd become so familiar with. "Because I was wrong. About everything. I found proof that the allegations were false, planted by someone trying to hurt you. You're exactly who you appear to be. You're good and genuine, and I—" Her voice broke. "I fell in love with you, and I can't keep lying anymore." Daniel stood there, silent, his jaw tight. She could see him processing, trying to make sense of what she'd told him. "So everything," he said slowly. "Every conversation we had, every moment we shared, you were just gathering information? Investigating me?" "At first, yes. But then I got to know you, the real you, and everything changed. I started trying to prove you were innocent, not guilty. I quit caring about the story and started caring about you. But you kept lying to me," he said, his voice rising. "Even after you knew the truth, even after you supposedly fell in love with me, you kept pretending to be someone else. You let me tell you things I don't tell anyone. You let me trust you. I know, and I'm so sorry. I was scared and confused, and I didn't know how to tell you without losing you." Daniel laughed, but it was bitter, nothing like his usual laugh. "Well, you've lost me anyway. Did you really think this could end any other way?" Rebecca was crying now. "I wasn't thinking. I just knew I couldn't keep lying to you. You deserve to know the truth. You want credit for telling the truth?" Daniel's eyes were hard now, harder than she'd ever seen them. "You created an elaborate lie, made me care about someone who doesn't exist, and now you want me to what? Forgive you because you finally felt guilty enough to confess?" "No, I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that you were right about one thing. I do care about you. The real me, Rebecca, cares about you. That part wasn't a lie." "How am I supposed to believe anything you say?" Daniel asked. "How do I know this isn't just another manipulation? Maybe you're still writing your story and this confession is part of it." "I'm not writing a story. I quit my job 2 weeks ago because I refused to publish anything about you. I chose you over my career." "I didn't ask you to do that," Daniel said quietly. "I didn't ask for any of this." They stood in silence for a long moment. Rebecca could hear the music and laughter from inside the ballroom, a sharp contrast to the pain on the balcony. "I think you should leave," Daniel finally said. "I can't look at you right now." Rebecca nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." She turned to go, then stopped. For what it's worth, you're the best person I've ever known. You changed how I see the world, and I'll regret hurting you for the rest of my life. Daniel didn't respond. He just stood there staring out at the city lights, his shoulders tense with pain and betrayal. Rebecca walked back through the ballroom, barely seeing the people around her. She made it to her car before she completely broke down, crying so hard she could barely breathe. She'd done the right thing by telling him the truth, but doing the right thing didn't make it hurt any less. She'd found something real, something precious, and she'd destroyed it with her own hands. The man of her dreams was out there somewhere, and he would never forgive her, and she would have to live with that forever. The first week after the gala was the hardest. Rebecca barely left her apartment. She'd call in sick to the freelance assignments she'd picked up, couldn't bring herself to eat, and spent most nights lying awake replaying that conversation on the balcony over and over in her mind. She kept reaching for her phone to text Daniel. Then, remembering she had no right to contact him, she'd check his social media, seeing pictures of him at foundation events, always smiling for the camera. But she could see something in his eyes that wasn't there before. A sadness that she'd put there. Her friend Amy came over on the 8th day, letting herself in with the spare key Rebecca had given her years ago. "Okay, that's enough," Amy said, opening the curtains and flooding the dark apartment with sunlight. "I love you, but this has to stop." "I ruined everything," Rebecca said from the couch where she'd been lying for hours. "Yes, you did," Amy agreed, sitting down beside her. "You made a terrible choice, and you hurt someone you care about. But you're not the first person to make a mistake, and you won't be the last. This wasn't just a mistake, Amy. I lied to him for weeks. I made him fall for someone who didn't exist. But you fell for him too, didn't you? The real you, not the fake identity." Rebecca nodded, fresh tears streaming down her face. "Then stop wallowing and figure out what you're going to do next. You can't change what happened, but you can control what happens from here." After Amy left, Rebecca forced herself to shower and get dressed. She sat down at her laptop and did something she hadn't done since the gala. She started writing, but she wasn't writing an exposé about Daniel. She was writing the truth about Richard Cole, the businessman who'd planted those false allegations. She dug into his background, his business practices, his history of pushing out low-income families to build expensive properties. She interviewed people he'd hurt, gathered evidence of his manipulation and greed. It took her 3 weeks to put together a comprehensive article. When she was done, she sent it to her old editor, Tom. He called her an hour later. "This is solid work, Rebecca. Really solid. But why are you writing about Cole instead of the Warren story you were investigating?" "Because there was no Warren story," Rebecca said. "Daniel Warren is exactly who he appears to be. A good man trying to help people. Cole was behind the false allegations because the foundation stopped one of his development projects." "And you're sure about this?" "Completely sure. I saw the foundation's internal records. Everything is legitimate." There was a pause on the other end. "How did you see internal records?" Rebecca closed her eyes. "I'd rather not say, but I'm prepared to stake my reputation on this story. Cole is the real story here, not Daniel." Tom agreed to run the article. It was published 2 weeks later in a major online news outlet. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Other journalists started investigating Cole, and within days, more victims came forward. His reputation took a massive hit, and several of his business deals fell apart. Rebecca felt a small sense of satisfaction, but it didn't fill the hole in her chest where her heart used to be. She started volunteering at a different charity across town, one that helped homeless veterans. She didn't tell anyone her real name or that she was a journalist. She just showed up, did the work, and tried to be genuinely helpful without any ulterior motives. It was there, sorting donations and serving meals, that she started to understand what Daniel had been trying to teach her all along, that helping people wasn't about getting credit or feeling good about yourself. It was about seeing someone else's humanity and responding to it with your own. One night, about 6 weeks after the gala, Rebecca was locking up the Veterans Center when her phone rang. Unknown number. "Hello? Rebecca Thompson?" A woman's voice. "Yes, who is this?" "My name is Patricia. I'm Daniel's assistant at the foundation. He asked me to call you." Rebecca's heart stopped. "Is he okay?" "He's fine. He wanted me to tell you that he read your article about Richard Cole. He said to tell you it was good work and that he's glad the truth came out." That's it?" "He also wanted you to know that the foundation is doing well. We've had an increase in donations since your article cleared up the false allegations. Many of the families you met are thriving. Rebecca felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you for telling me. There's one more thing, Patricia said. He wanted me to tell you that he understands why you did what you did. He doesn't agree with it and he's still hurt by it, but he understands. After they hung up, Rebecca sat in her car and cried. Not the desperate, hopeless tears she'd cried before, but something different. Tears of gratitude that Daniel was okay, that the foundation was thriving, that he didn't hate her with every fiber of his being. Understanding wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. The months passed. Fall turned to winter. Rebecca threw herself into her work, taking on assignments that mattered, stories about real people doing real good in the world. She stopped looking for scandals and started looking for hope. She continued volunteering at the Veterans Center twice a week. She became friends with some of the volunteers, learned the names of the regular visitors, and found herself actually looking forward to the work. One cold evening in January, she was helping organize a donation drive when one of the veterans, an older man named Frank, approached her. You're different than when you started, he observed. Different how? When you first came here, you seemed like you were running from something. Now you seem like you're running towards something. Rebecca thought about that. I think I'm trying to become a better person than I was. Frank nodded wisely. That's all any of us can do. Keep trying to be better than we were yesterday. She thought about Daniel constantly. She'd see something funny and want to text him about it. She'd read an article about nonprofit work and wonder what he'd think. She'd pass the community center where they'd first met and feel an ache so deep it took her breath away. But she never contacted him. He deserved peace, deserved to move on with his life without her stirring up painful memories. Then one day in early February, she was at the grocery store when she saw him. He was in the cereal aisle, reading the back of a box with the same careful attention he gave everything. He looked thinner than she remembered and tired. Rebecca's first instinct was to run, but before she could move, he looked up and saw her. For a long moment, they just stared at each other across the grocery aisle. Rebecca's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might explode. Daniel put the cereal box back and walked toward her. She braced herself for anger or coldness, but his expression was unreadable. Hi, he said quietly. Hi, Rebecca managed to respond. How have you been? Okay, trying to be better. You? Same. They stood there awkwardly, two people who'd once talked for hours now struggling to find words. I got your message, Rebecca said. Through Patricia. Thank you for that, Daniel nodded. The article you wrote about Cole was brave. You could have just walked away, but you made sure the truth came out. It was the least I could do after everything. Another silence stretched between them. Rebecca wanted to say so many things, but none of them seemed right. I should let you go, she finally said, starting to move past him. Rebecca, wait. She turned back, hope and fear warring in her chest. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, about us. He ran his hand through his hair, looking uncomfortable. I was so angry at first, felt completely betrayed, and you did betray my trust. Rebecca nodded, not trusting herself to speak. But I've also been thinking about why you told me the truth. You could have just disappeared. Could have written your story or just moved on with your life. But you chose to tell me, knowing I would probably hate you for it. I couldn't keep lying to you, Rebecca said softly. You deserved the truth even if it cost me everything. That took courage, Daniel admitted. The same courage it took to write that article exposing Cole when you could have just walked away. Where are you going with this? Rebecca asked, afraid to hope. Daniel took a deep breath. I'm not sure yet. I'm still hurt and I'm still angry sometimes when I think about it. But I also miss you. I miss talking to you, laughing with you. I miss the person you were when you weren't pretending. I miss you too, Rebecca whispered, every single day. I'm not ready to just pick up where we left off, Daniel said carefully. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that. But maybe, he paused, seeming to choose his words carefully, maybe we could start over. Not as Lisa and Daniel, but as Rebecca and Daniel. From the beginning, with honesty this time. Rebecca felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been frozen solid for months. I would like that, she said, more than anything. But only if you're really sure. I don't want to hurt you again. I'm not sure, Daniel admitted, but I think you're worth the risk of finding out. They exchanged phone numbers again, real ones this time. No fake names, no false identities. Just two damaged people trying to figure out if they could build something real from the ruins of something false. As Rebecca drove home, she didn't let herself get too hopeful. Daniel had said maybe, not yes. He'd said start over, not pick up where they left off. There were no guarantees that he would ever fully trust her again, or that they would end up together. But maybe was more than she deserved. Maybe was a gift she would treasure and protect. And if maybe eventually turned into something more, she would spend the rest of her life being worthy of it. For now, that was enough. The first few weeks of starting over were awkward and careful. Rebecca and Daniel texted occasionally, short messages about nothing important. How was your day? Did you see that article? Hope work is going well. They were like strangers learning to speak the same language. Rebecca didn't push. She responded when he reached out and gave him space when he didn't. She understood that trust was something you built slowly, not something you could demand or rush. 3 weeks after their grocery store encounter, Daniel asked if she wanted to meet for coffee. Not at the cafe where they'd had their first fake date, but at a different place across town. A fresh start required fresh locations. Rebecca arrived 10 minutes early, nervous in a way she hadn't been since high school. She'd changed her outfit 3 times that morning, finally settling on jeans and a simple sweater. Nothing fancy, nothing trying too hard. When Daniel walked in, he looked just as nervous as she felt. They hugged briefly, and Rebecca noticed he smelled the same. That small familiar detail made her heart ache. "Thanks for meeting me," Daniel said as they sat down with their coffee. "Thanks for asking," Rebecca replied. They talked about safe things at first. Work, the weather, a funny story about Daniel's neighbor, but gradually the conversation deepened. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said. "And I want you to be completely honest. Anything. When did it change for you? When did you stop investigating and start actually caring?" Rebecca had thought about this question a lot. "The night you followed me home to make sure my car didn't break down, I saw that you genuinely cared about my safety, and it scared me because I realized I was starting to care about you too. But I was still lying to myself, telling myself it was just part of the job. The truth is, I probably started falling for you the first day we met, and I spent weeks denying it." Daniel was quiet for a moment. "I started falling for you when you helped that elderly woman at the food drive, the one whose bags were too heavy. You didn't know I was watching. You just saw someone who needed help and you helped her. Later I realized that might have been an act, but I've thought about it a lot and I don't think it was." "It wasn't," Rebecca said firmly. "That was real. The helping, the caring about the families, that was all real. The only lie was my identity, not my feelings." "That's what makes this so complicated," Daniel said. "I can't sort out what was real and what wasn't. Every memory I have of us has this question mark hanging over it." Rebecca felt tears threatening, but held them back. "I know, and I'm sorry. I wish I could go back and do it differently." "How would you do it differently?" "I would have told you the truth the day I met you. I would have said, I'm a journalist investigating allegations about your foundation, and I'd like to talk to you about them. You probably would have said no, and I would have written my story based on public records and found out the truth anyway. We never would have become friends. We never would have fallen in love, but at least I wouldn't have hurt you. We also wouldn't be sitting here right now," Daniel pointed out. "Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I honestly don't know yet." They met for coffee 3 more times over the next month. Each time was easier, more natural. The conversation flowed better. The laughter came more readily. But there was still a wall between them, built from broken trust and painful memories. One evening, Daniel called her instead of texting. "Hey, I know this is short notice, but we're having a volunteer event tomorrow at the foundation, building playground equipment at a community center. I thought maybe you'd want to come, not as fake Lisa, but as real Rebecca, just to see the work we do without any pretense." Rebecca's heart swelled. This was a big step for him. "I'd love to." The next day, she showed up at the community center in work clothes, ready to help. Several volunteers recognized her from before, when she'd been pretending to be Lisa. Daniel must have told them the truth because they greeted her warmly but without any questions. Working alongside Daniel felt both familiar and brand new. They assembled playground equipment, dug holes for posts, and painted benches. They worked well together, moving around each other easily, anticipating what needed to be done next. During lunch, one of the volunteers, an older woman named Helen, sat down next to Rebecca. "Daniel told us what happened," she said gently, "about the investigation and everything." Rebecca tensed. "I'm sure that was hard for him." It was. "But he also told us that you were the one who wrote that article exposing the man who was spreading lies about our foundation. You could have just walked away, but you didn't. I had to make it right somehow." Helen smiled. "That boy has been through a lot. Lost his mother young, built all this from nothing, deals with people doubting him all the time. But I've never seen him look at anyone the way he looks at you, even when he's trying to hide it." Rebecca glanced over at Daniel, who was showing a group of kids how to use the new swings. "I hurt him really badly." "Yes, you did. But he wouldn't be trying if he didn't think you were worth it. Don't waste that chance." As the day went on, Rebecca felt something shift. She was genuinely helping, genuinely part of this community, and it felt right in a way nothing had felt right in months. After the event, as they were cleaning up, Daniel approached her. "Thank you for coming today," he said. "Thank you for inviting me." "I've been thinking," Daniel said, not quite meeting her eyes, "about us, about what happened, and I realized something." Rebecca's heart started racing. "I spent so long being angry about the deception that I forgot to look at the whole picture. Yes, you lied about your identity, but every action you took, every kind thing you did, that was real. You could have faked helping people, but you didn't. You genuinely cared." "I did. I do. And when you found out the truth about me, you didn't just write a neutral article or no article at all. You went after the person who was actually causing harm. You quit your job rather than exploit what you'd learned. Those were choices you didn't have to make." Rebecca didn't know what to say. "I'm not saying I'm completely over it. I still have moments where I remember you lied and it hurts. But I also have moments where I remember you laughing, or the way you'd get this intense look when you were listening to someone's story, or how you'd stay late to help even when you were exhausted. And I miss those moments." "I miss them too," Rebecca said softly. "So I was thinking," Daniel continued, "maybe we could try going on an actual date, a real one, where we're both being completely ourselves, no walls, no lies, just to see what happens." Rebecca felt like she could barely breathe. "I would really like that." Their first real date was at a small Italian restaurant the following Saturday. Rebecca wore a blue dress and couldn't stop fidgeting with her necklace. When Daniel picked her up, he brought flowers. "I never got to do this properly before," he said with a shy smile. Over dinner, they talked about everything. Rebecca told him about growing up with a single mother, about why she became a journalist, about the cynicism that had slowly taken over her view of the world. "I spent so many years looking for the worst in people," she admitted. "I convinced myself that everyone was hiding something, that genuine goodness didn't exist. Then I met you, and you were exactly what you appeared to be, and I couldn't accept it." "I'm not perfect," Daniel said. "I have bad days. I get frustrated. Sometimes I'm so tired I can barely think straight. I'm not some saint, I know. That's what makes you real." Daniel reached across the table and took her hand. "I want to try this. Really try, but I need you to promise me something. Anything. No more lies, ever, even small ones. Even lies that seem easier than the truth. If we're going to do this, it has to be built on complete honesty." "I promise," Rebecca said. And she meant it with everything in her. Over the next few months, they built something new. Not the intense, dramatic relationship from before, but something steadier, deeper. They went on dates, met each other's friends, and slowly learned to trust each other. Rebecca introduced Daniel to Amy, who grilled him thoroughly before finally giving her approval. Daniel introduced Rebecca to his foundation staff, not as a volunteer with a fake identity, but as the woman he was dating.